Another week, boys, and another TWAB. This week at Bungie, we expose vulnerabilities in the Vex network. It's been another jam-packed week of seasoning the Splicer content. Guardians have infiltrated deeper into the Vex network through the new Expunge mission, and a new override 6-player activity is now available on the Tangle Shore. Get in there and help Mithrax stop this endless night. Over the weekend, the Vault of Glass raid opened up for the first time in Destiny 2. Fireteams of Guardians have started diving down into its depths to be greeted with familiar feelings and new twists. Here's a quick teaser if you still haven't stepped inside yourself. That's right, guys, Vault of Glass is back in the game. Free to play, by the way. And honestly, I really like how they brought it back. I like the different twist in the mechanics, but the only thing I wish they would have done is just still included the rest of the loot pool. Atheon's epilogue, as well as the raid fusion rifle from Destiny 1. But outside of that, the rework to the raid, the rework to Vex Mythic class, as well as that Easter egg there with the vault and the exotic catalyst for Vex Mythic class, where you can peer inside of the Whisper mission. That was pretty amazing. Now, Bungie continues. There were some initial worries that a new bug may allow players to once again yeet to defeat Atheon. However, some additional testing showed that he has adapted over the years and is not as easy to persuade off of the ledges. We'll continue to keep an eye on things. Speaking of keeping an eye on things, we got a pleasure of watching along as the world's first race raged on over the weekend. It's always exciting getting to watch fireteams face off against new raid content. If you missed it, go dig up a VOD from your favorite creator or check out the replay of Broman and Rec following the race with the raid day tailgate. They did an awesome job. Now, VoG Champs. Thousands of teams lined up to take on the Vault of Glass, but in the end, there can only be one world's first fire team. This time around, simply clearing the raid was just the first leg of the race. Teams then had to finish it again and solve additional challenges to complete the Tempo's Edge Triumph. Clan Elysium, am I saying that right? Not only finished their initial run first, but no one was able to catch them as they pushed their way through the challenges that followed and crossed the finish line. Yeah, so this was actually the same team that got second in the DSC raid. Big shout out to these guys. Pretty sure they were finishing challenge mode by the time we were finishing Atheon. Now, we reached out to the world's first fire team to get some inside knowledge behind their victory. Here's what they had to say. First off, congratulations on your world's first finish for Destiny 2 Vault of Glass. Tell us a bit about your fire team. So from Cruz here, we're all from Clan Elysium. Some of us have been here for several years at this point, and others only joined a handful of months ago. We actively pursue the most challenging pieces of content in the game for fun and have formed a pretty great team through our mutual interests. What kind of preparation and planning did your fire team do before raid day? Were you feeling good about this run beforehand? Cruz, we each did a bit of refreshing in terms of how the Destiny 1 version of Vault of Glass functioned mechanically and was paced, as well as how it could translate into Destiny 2. Salt Grepo and I went back to 2-man Vault of Glass to get super familiar with the layout of each area and encounter. As the days crept towards the world's first race, we discussed so many different things that can impact how we perform, whether it be class composition, what loadouts we want to prepare for each encounter, and of course, what the challenges could be for our second run. The night before, we set our plans for the day in stone. We definitely felt like this was a realistic goal. We all believed in ourselves as well as in each other. I don't think any of us really thought that this is it until we heard that we got the first clear of the normal version from chat. Once I knew that, I knew this was our first chance to get a world's first. Yo, big shout out to Clan Elysium. By the way, guys, if you're interested in knowing all of these questions, there is a Q&A portion on the TWAB. I'll link it in the description below. You can go check this all out. Essentially, though, DMG does ask a number of questions, such as what was the trickiest part for the race? What was the key to overcoming these things? Great insight from my fellow PvE players. Now, moving on. Slow down. I'm just going to keep it short and introduce Sandbox lead Kevin Yanes to give you an update on Stasis on behalf of our gameplay team. They have a lot to say, so let's get to it. So from Kevin, hey all, Kevin from gameplay team here. I want to take a second to talk to you all about Stasis, our vision for Guardian versus Guardian combat and the road that gets us there. Ice, baby. First, let's chat about Stasis, our 4th damage type in Destiny and the newest to join the fold. We've heard a lot of feedback about Stasis since its launch alongside Beyond Light in Season 12, and we've been using that feedback to help shape the future of the damage type. It's clear the vision we have for crowd control in PvE is succeeding, and players are finding it both useful and fun. We love how Stasis plays in PvE, and we want to preserve that experience. But we agree with many in the PvP community who say that Stasis is too dominant in the Crucible for too little effort or skill required. Over the last few weeks, we've been open with you that we're taking this feedback to heart and working hard to reel in this great new power. We adore the long legacy of Bungie PvP games and want the PvP combat sandbox to live up to that adoration. This means we want the Crucible to be as fun for as many players as possible while also serving up those moments of skillful execution and incredible plays. It's a tightrope to walk, and frankly, we overcorrected during development when considering whether Stasis would live up to the Arc, Solar, and Void. Stasis and crowd crowd control are key components of the Destiny combat sandbox. They're not going anywhere, meaning it's up to us to ensure Stasis plays well across all activities, regardless of skill level. What you'll find detailed in this TWAB is a series of changes we believe will more evenly position Stasis alongside Void, Solar, and Arc subclasses as an equal option rather than a dominant one, while retaining what is fun about the ability set. So starting with I need a weapon. Since Forsaken, we've been slowly creeping towards a Crucible where it feels like gunplay is taking a back seat to our sweet cosmic magical powers. We believe this is the wrong place for Crucible to be, and we want to shift the balance more towards weapons. To us, the Crucible plays best when weapons and abilities have complementary usage in any given encounter. When we set out to define what our vision looked like for the future of Guardian versus Guardian combat, it boiled down to a few key pillars. So starting with the first pillar, weapons are the primary way players engage with combat. The second pillar, non-super abilities accentuate or augment the combat, but should rarely solve an encounter by themselves. The third pillar, abilities have clear strengths, weaknesses, as well as counterplay. And the fourth pillar, build crafting is rewarding within the moment-to-moment combat loop of Destiny. Now, behind the scenes, we've been executing on these pillars by planning out a roadmap of patches that we believe will not only get Stasis to where it needs to be for PvP, but also sets us up to shift the PvP combat sandbox in a meaningful way toward more gunplay. Okay. So what are we talking about? Bungie, you about to speed up the TTK across the board? Kevin continues, don't make a promise. Our first patch in this roadmap was released in March and was developed separately alongside Season 14. Unfortunately, due to the pieces already moving at the time, some changes were made that buffed Stasis and were not consistent with our goals. We're working hard to ensure that when we release hotfix patches, we can realign all of those moving pieces to exist more cohesively. Please pardon our dust as we work to get fixes and new features out to you in a timely manner. Next, we have some details for next week's hotfix below. As you'll see, there's a lot of changes to go over here, and they're all focused on Stasis. This patch is something we moved up from Season 15 to help smooth over some of the pain points players have been feeling. Wow, so this was actually a patch supposed to be coming out next season that's coming out next week? All right, it's important to note here that shifting our focus like this comes at a considerable cost to the team, so it's unlikely that mid-season patches of this scope will become a regular occurrence. Once this patch is shipped, we'll be diving back into Season 15, where we are planning to deliver another balanced patch focused on updates to light subclasses while continuing to iterate on Stasis. The goal here is to address some key pieces of feedback and make more of the light subclasses viable across the game. After Season 15, things become a little more nebulous because we're still early in development. What I can talk about are our areas of focus to help paint a picture of where we're headed. We're looking at our ability regeneration rates and redesigning how the ability energy economy works across the game. Our goal here is to keep the PvE experience largely similar to the state of the game today, but reduce how often abilities are used in the Crucible. After that, we'll be taking a long, hard look at the Void, Solar, and Arc subclasses to re-examine each subclass path and how they fit into the combat sandbox. Wow, I do want to mention, guys, depending on how big of a patch this actually is, we're about to move down here and take a look at it. This is unusual, like for real unusual. Bungie, for the most part, just says, all right, well, you're gonna have to deal with it for a season. We'll get to it when we get to it. But considering that hashtag nerf stasis or remove stasis was trending there for like a week, yeah. Now, our best days are still ahead. I know some of this feels like a tease, and I hope to speak to you all again in the future when we have more to show. Like Joe mentioned in our Beyond Light Vidoc, Destiny's best days are still ahead of us. I truly believe that. Our love for this game burns bright. I hope what's written above speaks to that and inspires you all the way I feel inspired when I think of our future. With that, I'll hand it over to gameplay designer Eric Smith to talk you through our upcoming balance patch. Alrighty, so from Eric, heating up. Hey Guardians, the combat gameplay team is currently working on changes to Stasis gameplay abilities aimed at improving the Stasis experience in the Crucible. We had originally planned to ship these changes in Season 15 alongside our larger subclass balance patch, but we decided to move several of the Stasis gameplay changes up to hotfix 3.2.0.3, which is planned to go live on Thursday, June the 3rd. Okay, Thursday. Wow, a Thursday patch? We're still hard at work on additional ability changes that will launch in Season 15 and 16, but we wanted to get these Stasis changes into players' hands sooner rather than later. Without further ado, here are the changes. Starting with General Stasis. Stasis Freeze. Reduce duration of all non-super freezes versus players to 1.35 seconds. Note, this freeze is too short to break out of, so breaking out is now only possible when frozen by a super. Wow! Reduce special weapon, heavy weapon, and light ability bonus damage versus frozen players from 50% to now plus 5%. Now, Stasis Slow slow. No longer reduces weapon accuracy. Oh my god. Now increases weapon flinch when under fire. So you still will receive flinch, but you won't have potato aim for no reason other than just getting a little slow. No longer suppresses class ability as well as air move. For example, Icarus Dash. Known issue, the Stormcaller's Ionic Blink is still suppressed when slow. We plan to address this in a future release. Now they did reduce movement speed penalty while slowed by 20%. So you'll actually be able to move faster out of a slow. The big thing, guys, is the reduction in weapon accuracy no longer happening. Can't tell you how many times I've been hit by a shuriken, my reticle blooms out, and then it's just GG's. Whisper of Hedron's Fragment no longer increases weapon damage after freezing. Now increases weapon stability, weapon aim assist, mobility, resilience, and recovery after freezing. Oh boy, PvE players aren't gonna like this one. Stability's nice, but yeah. Honestly though, depending on how much it buffs things like stability and aim assist, it could still be a play, guys. Like, I don't want us to just jump up and say, what the hell? Hadrons could very well still be really good. You just won't get a buff to weapon damage, and I think Bungie's trying to target things like one-shot, body shot, sniper rifles, amongst other things that are kind of cheesy. Moving on, Whisper of Rhyme Fragment no longer provides overshield while in a super. Cold Snap Grenade. Seekers no longer track targets after initial target acquisition. Increase arming duration before Seeker spawns from 0.3 seconds to 0.8 seconds, meaning you can't panic it. Reduce detonation radius versus players from 3 meters to now 1.5 meters. So now you have to be more accurate with it. Also, now bounces off of walls and detonates on the ground. This is a very unique thing and doesn't happen often, but Bungie is essentially adding something called skill into your grenade throws. Dude, back in Halo, I used to be able to beer pong a frag all the way across the map. It's an incredible skill set. Now, Titan Behemoth. Looking at recent gameplay data, the Behemoth generally has the highest win rates of any subclass in most 6v6 game modes and is also among the strongest in 3v3 modes. In Trials of Osiris matches, for example, only Top Tree Dawnblade has a higher win rate. We've taken these strengths into account when balancing the Behemoth's abilities. Between the Shiver Strike and Cryoclasm, the Behemoth has incredible high mobility, making targeting the Behemoth frustrating for controller players in particular. We've taken steps to make the Behemoth more targetable while moving, which should hopefully alleviate some of these frustrations. So starting with the Shiver Strike, we reduce flight speed and distance. We also reduce knockback versus players and remove slow detonation on player impact. Cryoclasm now requires the Titan to sprint for 1.25 seconds before activation when not in a super. Wow, giving it the Antaeus Wards treatment there. Also removed cooldown. Okay, well, I guess you don't have to have a cooldown since 1.25 seconds. Okay. Howl of the Storm. Reduce angle of initial freezing and damage count. Reduce crystal creation freezing radius. Slow down sequence of crystal formation to allow victims more opportunity to escape. Now spawns a small crystal on walls if performed into walls. Now the Glacial Quake. Reduce heavy slam vertical freeze range versus players. Oh, that's a big one. Your Hoppity Hunters, good chance you'll be able to avoid it completely. Reduce damage resistance from 50% to 47%. Wow! They actually dropped the damage resistance there. Again, dude, I'm telling you, man, Behemoths and their super are about to get farmed. Moving on to Hunter Revenant. The Revenant's Crucible win rate, kills per minute, and average efficiency is generally within the top 6 of all subclass trees, but its usage rate is incredibly high. In Trials of Osiris matches, it has the 5th highest win rate of any subclass tree, but is used by a whopping 36% of trial players. This high usage means players fall victim to its abilities more often, multiplying the frustration of being slowed by Withering Blade and Winter Shroud. We hope the changes we've made to being slowed, paired with the adjustments to Revenant's abilities, makes this experience better. So starting with Withering Blade. Reduce slow duration versus players from 2.5 seconds to 1.5. Reduce Whisper of Durant's slow duration extension versus players from 2 seconds to 0.5 seconds. Reduce damage versus players from 65 to 45 after one bounce reduced further to 30. Reduce projectile speed by 10% and reduce tracking after bouncing off of a wall. Now this is very similar to what they already did to it in the previous sandbox rollout. Regardless, they're doubling down on this, guys. Withering Blade is getting smacked, man. Winter Shroud. Reduce slow duration versus players from 2.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Reduce Whisper of Durant's slow duration extension versus players from 2 seconds to 0.5 seconds. Now Touch of Winter. Cold Snap Seeker no longer has increased movement speed or travel distance. Cold Snap Seeker now spawns a small stasis crystal on detonation. Again, targeting another aspect there where our grenades had enhanced functionality, but essentially, yeah, Bungie's going after those things, guys. Moving on to the Warlock Shadebinder. The Shadebinder's Crucible performance is generally within the top 10 of all subclass trees. In Trials of Osiris matches, it has the 9th highest win rate of all subclass trees. By the way, I'm pulling all this data from the weekend of May the 14th, 2021, but it generally doesn't deviate much between weekends. Vault of Glass launch weekend shook things up a bit though. While the Shadebinder may not be the most powerful in competitive play, being frozen by its abilities takes a large emotional toll on the victim. We've adjusted Penumbral Blast to require more accuracy versus players in order to turn this ability into more of a skill shot given its powerful effects. By the way, I'm going to talk on this a little more because I noticed that they're using Trials of Osiris and the win rate of these subclasses as a point of reference. There is some concerns there, but first let's talk about this. Penumbral Blast, reduced tracking and proximity detonation size and tracking versus players, reduced freeze radius versus players when impacting the environment from 2.7 meters to 1.5 meters. Now the Ice Flare bolts, Seekers now only chain once when spawned from a player's shatter. Winter's Wrath, freezing projectile tracking strength now ramps down to 0 after 2 seconds of flight. We hope these changes have a positive impact on your Crucible experience. While the gameplay team is very busy working on future releases, Crucible and the PvP community are incredibly important to us, and we'll continue to monitor gameplay data and community feedback regarding Stasis and subclass abilities in general. We'll continue to update Stasis until its win rates and usage rates are in line with the light subclasses. Expect more updates in the future. I think overall these changes are good. My concern though is like we had some Stasis changes. Stasis seemed to get reeled in more, and then new aspects and new fragments came with the new season, and then it was back to essentially how it was pre-nerf. So I feel like we're going to continue to run into this problem as more aspects and more fragments is added into the game, which I gotta say is probably adding stress onto the sandbox team at Bungie. The other thing, win rates inside of trials. It's kind of a difficult one to go off of. You can, that's fine, it's data. The problem is there is a large amount of cheaters inside of Destiny 2 who are free to play, as in they don't buy Stasis subclasses. They don't need them. They got aimbot. So you may have skewed data there, guys. In my opinion, I think it may be a little skewed. I'm not looking at it. I'm just going off of what they just said to us. But if you're just purely going off of win rates inside of trials and then adjusting it based on that, it may not tell the whole story. Either way it goes, Sandbox team rolling these things out now is actually pretty incredible. I'm excited to get my hands on these changes. We'll of course be testing this live next Thursday. Hopefully it'll be rolling out around reset time. Now moving on to Expunge. Our new Expunge mission went live this week as part of the weekly seasonal quests. We hope you are enjoying directly infiltrating the Vex network to venture inside the computer. We caused a bit of confusion on rewards by referring to this as a weekly pinnacle mission and wanted to give you a better idea of what kind of sweet loot you can expect to extract from this new mission over the weeks to come. Here's senior designer Mike Profeta to share some reward details with you. So from Mike here, with the removal of seasonal armor in the season pass reward track, we still wanted to provide players with a way to earn a full set of high stat seasonal armor. With the seasonal storyline quests requiring completions of Expunge each week once introduced, that felt like a great source of those armor rewards. For the first 4 weeks of the new Expunge mission, players should expect to earn a piece of high stat seasonal armor in addition to some decrypted data on their first time through each mission. Once players have earned their high stat armor set by completing the first 4 missions, remaining weekly Expunge missions upon first completion will reward seasonal weapons with an additional perk choice in the final column instead of an armor piece. Starting on June the 15th, a new Pinnacle activity challenge will roll out connected to the Expunge missions, providing an additional Pinnacle reward source each week for the remainder of the season. This coincides with the replayability being introduced in Expunge missions, along with the unveiling the final 3 Splicer Gauntlet upgrades, which will provide additional rewards and source of high stat double perk seasonal gear from Expunge each week for as long as the activity is available to players. All right, so there you go, guys. Yeah, we didn't get a Pinnacle this week. We won't get a Pinnacle for the next 4 weeks, but afterwards, sounds like it's going to be pretty rewarding. Outside of that, a final note here from Cosmo. Thanks for chewing your way through this meaty TWAB. To get you back to your day, I'll just leave you with this. Supplicants only want hugs. Please show them some affection. Cosmo. All right, guys, that's your TWAB. Let me know in the comments below what you think. There's been a lot of Stasis changes mentioned today. I even noticed a few of the changes seem to coincide with some of the suggestions that Jay gave. Overall, I'm excited to try them all out. Honestly, I've actually played the least amount of Crucible this season than ever before. So hopefully this is gonna kind of reel me back in. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.